All right, as you may know, in the news, Congress is talking about auditing the Fed. I believe it's a GAO audit. I think it's a pretty good idea. Fed's has botched policy for 10 years, creating two massive bubbles, the tech bubble and the housing bubble. So why shouldn't they be accountable? Look at the damage they've wrought. With us now to talk about this, we have Minnesota Republican House member Michele Bachmann, who sent this letter to the president today. There it is. I guess it's about the audit. And we have former Dallas Federal Reserve Bank president Robert McTeer, the head CEO in there. Well, you were the CEO of the Dallas Fed. But, Michele Bachmann, I want to go to you because Congress is getting pretty uppity when it comes to the Fed, and I'm not sure that's not a good idea to be uppity when it comes to the Fed. What's your take on this story?
Well, I think it's important that we get some transparency from the Fed and also some answers as well. All we're asking for is that the Fed be audited, that the results of the audit be given to Congress before 2010. And, Larry, there's a whopping 242 members on the bill to ask that the Fed be audited. Clearly more than enough to pass the bill.
This is a GAO audit, is it not?
This, I believe, yes, is a GAO audit.
And what would the audit emphasize? In other words, I know this is going to be an expense audit, and it's going to have a lot to do with the Fed's activities, their hyper-TARP activities with the banks and so forth. Will it also be a policy performance audit?
Well, we want to know the basic numbers that are on the books, but I think we'd like to also go to the latter as well, your latter point as well. Yeah. I think it's important. We've never had an audit like this before, Larry. And now when we're looking at President Obama, whose recent proposal is to expand the Fed's authority over private industry, certainly we need to have an audit of the Fed.
So, Bob McTeer, two bubbles in 10 years, the tech bubble and now the housing bubble, and you don't think the Fed deserves some accountability?
Well, I don't think you can blame those two bubbles entirely on the Fed. I think the Fed's basically done a very good job.
Well, you think it was immaculate conception? Where'd all that money come from? Only the Fed creates money? You taught me that.
Well, when you create a lot of money, it's kind of odd for it all to go to one market and have inflation in one sector and deflation in another, and that's basically what happened in the housing sector, and to some extent in the stock market boom. And nobody ever gave the Fed the instruction that it was out there to stop bubbles in the first place.
Yeah, Michele, you hear it? Robert McTeer is a very sound thinker, Michele, and I'm sure you know that. But you hear these defenses. He's foxtrotting all over the stage, and I love the guy. But, Michele, what about this other issue that Congress itself is to blame because they give the Fed a dual mandate? See, they say you should fight inflation and unemployment, but there's no real trade-off between the two. How about the Fed protecting our money for a change, like the dollar? Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Oh, it'd be a wonderful thing because that's what I'm hearing from my constituents. That's what members are hearing from our constituents all across the country. People are fearful that their dollar isn't worth a dollar any longer, and I think that's a very important factor.
Yeah, and they're not so confident about these government planners. Hang on, you two are going to come back. We're going to continue this. We're going to give Mr. McTeer totally equal time, along with Michele Bachmann. Much more work to do. I don't know. We're talking about a Fed audit. How about that? A little accountability. Michele Bachmann, though, there's a news story that may replace this story, and that is Team Obama is now going to use TARP money. I don't know if you've gotten wind of this. Washington Post broke this story at the beginning of our show. TARP money to give out to small businesses. Now, maybe you had to make a campaign contribution to Obama to get this money. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I think it's a really bad idea, just the way the automobile task force was a bad idea, just the way TARP in the first place was a bad idea. Injecting government into the private sector has proved to be a bust, not a boom. And I think, honestly, Larry, we would have seen a recovery months ago if the federal government wouldn't have made a lot of these extraordinary actions.
What do you think of that, Robert McTeer? It's a pretty harsh indictment.
Well, I agree with two-thirds of it. I think the original TARP plan to help the banks was necessary and has been very helpful. I disagree that it should have gone into the automobile industry and should now go into small business.
You don't want it going into small business. But Michele Bachmann, Bob McTeer says it was a good idea to help the banks. Do you?
Well, I just read 2 days ago, Larry, an Arizona State University professor said today, after all of this intervention, government now controls or owns 30% of all private business profits in the United States. That's before we nationalize health care. So the direction that we're going in is not positive, and so I'm very concerned about that.
Well, Robert McTeer, switching TARP money into small business loans, you don't like that. But you're still going to draw the line. You don't want the GAO to audit the Fed's performance, do you? Does anyone get to audit the Fed? I mean, after all, the Fed is independent, but it is part of the U.S. government.
Hold on, Larry. The Fed has been audited by outside auditors for several years now on a continuing basis.
But not the government auditors.
That's right.
Oh, no, but it's been a private outside auditing firm. On the current audit, it's my understanding that what they're looking into is Mr. Bernanke's comments and relationship with Mr. Lewis on the Bank of America Merrill affair. If they want to look into that, I have no objection to that. I take Mr. Bernanke at his word. I sat beside him for 3 years at the FOMC table, and I believe him. However, let's say that he did put undue pressure on him. He did it in the interest of saving the financial system.
I'm out of time. I'd love to have this more debate. I think they're going to go beyond that, but I could be wrong. Michele Bachmann in Minnesota, thank you very much. Robert McTeer, thank you very much.